for Toko Sandy Grandi, as well as to ensure that the United National Congress returns to government and Kamala Tobago.
Hi, I am Nabila Green, your candidate for Toko Sandy Grandi. Presently, I'm in my hometown, Grand River, with my UNC family, accompanied by biological family. We are on the ground, we're working hard, we're going from house to house, reminding of my villagers rather, of how important it is to come out and vote for election day for the representation that we desperately need. Now is the time for proper representation. Now is the time to make sure and be registered. Now is the time where 50,000 jobs will be available if you come out and vote. Now is also the time for secondary school children to have access to laptops. Now is the time. Now is time to vote for Nabila Green.
Now is the time! No! The time is no! No! The time is no! No! The time is no!
Here we are in Akono village walking with our candidate, Mr. David Naked. This is his hometown, and I think there are about 197 Nakids in this village.
Right now, everything is looking great so far, the candidate, sticking up to the word, Right now, we started with agriculture. I think I'm putting back our Kono there for the youths and them to bring them out, get them employment. David Naked, David Naked is a down to earth man. Cool, he humble, listen, the arms open out for everyone. Yeah, David representing the youths, Yes, right now we are on the great road to victory.
Hi everyone, I'm your candidate for Tenapuna, David Naked, asking you to come take a look at the energy that the UNC is generating all around the East-West corridor, especially here in the constituency of Tenapuna. Come out and support our economic and social transformation package, designated by our PL Kamala Prasad Bisasi. 50,000 more jobs, lower taxes. Come and join with us moving forward with unity.
Hi, yes, nice to meet you. Right, looking forward to the support. Things going very well here at Barataria San Juan. The energy is high, the election bell has rung, and Barataria San Juan is ready to get Trinidad and Tobago working again under the leadership of the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisasa as our next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
I am Sharon Maradnaram, Shadow Councillor for Barataria, and we have been walking Barataria since last Wednesday. So far, when we are finished today, we would have completed 14 of our PDs, and the reception is exceptional. Everyone is coming out, it faces everything. People wouldn't be coming out, they are coming out. Now is the time for the United National Congress. It's pace on the road.
Now is the time to put them out. 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 No, the time is no. No, the time is no. No, the time is no. Now is the time for action. Now is the time for action.
Live from the United National Congress social space, this is the virtual
Now is the time! No, the time is no. No, the time is no. Now is the time to put them out. The time is no. Hey. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. Now is the time for action. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to cast your vote. Now is the time to start to sick for the children education. It's time for a leader who have a plan. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to reduce the tax. Now is the time for all crime to stop. This is the time we're not giving up.
So let's all join together as one. If you believe that the time has come, election day when you stay in your hand, it's for the UNC and the rising sun, 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 sun.
What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. Now is the time for action. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. Now is the time for action.
Now is the time
Gentlemen,
to put them out. Now is the time
sing it.
to put them out.
Louder.
Now is the time
Let them hear.
to put them out.
Let the people hear.
To put them out. Now is the time to put them out. Now is the time.
So let's all join together as one. If you believe that the time has come, election day when you stay in your hand, it's for the UNC and the rising sun, 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 sun.
What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. Now is the time for action. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to cast your vote. Now is the time to start to work. Now is the time we bring your hope. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to take a stand. Cause the UNC have the plan. Put up your hand if you understand.
Now is the time to put them out. 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 Now is the time to put them out.
Now is the time. No, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no.
Live from the United National Congress virtual campaign, on the ballot now, the UNC candidate for Tabaquite, Senator Anita Hayes.
No, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no.
Live from the United National Congress virtual campaign, on the ballot now, the UNC candidate for Tabaquite, Senator Anita Hayes.
Now is the time. No, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no.
Live from the United National Congress virtual campaign, on the ballot now, the UNC candidate for Tabaquite, Senator Anita Hayes.
Now is the time.
We are in Grand River, the hometown of our candidate for Toko Sandy Grande, Miss Nabila Green. And the reception here is fantastic. All of her family, her relatives, the entire village, they are out supporting. And I am confident that Nabila Green will bring victory to Toko Sandy Grande. My darling, listen. Just a walk about.
You're not saying nothing.
I know. Say no more.
Support.
I know that.
You're not saying nothing. You're going here, you have our full support.
Right.
Hello Trinidad and Tobago. I am Peter Kanhai, Chairman of the United National Congress. I am in the constituency of Toko Sandy Grande today with our candidate, Ms. Nabila Green, for this constituency. And right at this moment, we are actually in Grand River, Nabila's hometown, where she was born, bred, and grew up. And we are here campaigning with her to make sure that Nabila Green becomes the next Member of Parliament for Topo Sandy Grande, as well as to ensure that the United National Congress returns to government and Kamala Persad-Bissessar returns as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
Now is the time! No! The time is no! No! The time is no! Now is the time to vote them out! The time is no! No! Hey! What time it is? No! What time it is? No! What time it is? No!
Live from the United National Congress virtual campaign, on the ballot now, the UNC candidate for Tabaquite, Senator Anita Hayes.
Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to my fellow speakers here tonight, and good evening to the political leader and next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Trinidad and Tobago, we are just 18 days away from the 2020 general elections. We are just 18 days away from rescuing our economy and our livelihoods from being permanently ruined by the most incompetent government in our history. We are just 18 days away from restoring the innovative policies spearheaded by Kamala Persad-Bissessar that gave young people and this nation a brighter future. We are just 18 days away from saving our democracy from a PNM government conducting secret meetings with officials from a narco regime. Imagine, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of an economic crisis, and now an approaching tropical storm, Keith Rowley has just announced that he will be liming tomorrow night, inviting the public to join him on our line. Well, don't worry. We are just 18 days away from giving Keith Rowley all the time he needs to lime. Let's be honest. He spent the last 5 years liming. While we, the people, have been suffering, the Rowley regime was liming. Over these past 5 years, this Keith Rowley regime has displayed the most egregious and reprehensible behavior towards the citizens of this country. I had the most heartbreaking conversation today. A lady called me today for help to get her diabetic husband home. He has been stuck in Japan since the border closure. She's told me about the high cost of medicine for him, that he left Trinidad for work, that they're just trying to earn a living for their family, trying to make better for themselves. And now he's being told that you cannot come home. Imagine being locked out of your own country. But worse yet, imagine your government making you a villain, making the rest of Trinidad and Tobago turn against you, a citizen who left simply to make life better for him and his family. I've had several calls from citizens all over the world, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, simply asking for the opportunity to come back home. Our citizens are afraid to speak out. Imagine being told, I just want a chance to come back home. Imagine being told by citizens that they just want a chance to come back home, but they will not show their faces. They are asking us not to say their names because they are afraid that the Rowley regime will attack them once they know who they are. Over these past 5 years, the Keith Rowley regime has, anyone who has exposed their corruption and incompetence, be it the media, the opposition, or activists, have been vilified and abused. But Keith Rowley saves his worst for one particular group, women. This is a man who has blamed female victims of domestic violence for causing their own abuse, saying they should choose their men wisely. This is a man who stood up in Parliament and had the audacity to compare women to golf courses, describing how they should be groomed. This is a man who gets bizarrely angry towards the first female Prime Minister of our nation, throwing every insult imaginable at her. Keith Rowley, you honestly might not be aware that we are living in the year 2020 and not 1820. No woman, be her in the UNC, the PNM, or any other institution in our nation, deserves to be subjected to the kind of misogynistic attacks like those we have seen emanating from the PNM election campaign this week. A real leader will condemn these attacks. Are you a real leader, Keith Rowley? Are you willing to stand up against the kind of low-level political warfare that we have seen this week? To all the young women watching tonight, who may be wondering if a career in public service is worth it, who may be wondering if they chose to make the huge step to represent the people of our nation, that every single detail of their private life would be raked up and made public, or that downright lies would be told about them by those wishing to destroy others for their own selfish gains. I want to say to you, be brave. To all the young people, men and women alike, who want to make a difference and are being told that they are kindergartners, I want to tell you, you have nothing to fear. Wanting to make our nation a better place takes hard work, but most of all, it takes courage. It takes courage to stand up for the right thing. The way of doing politics in Trinidad and Tobago is changing. For those like Keith Rowley who are stuck in the past, they will resort to doing anything they can to cling to the old way. They will attack, they will degrade, they will insult anyone to keep things the way they are. But only cowards degrade and bully others. I said bully for those in the media in case you did not hear me correctly. Cowards like Keith Rowley always run away when you stand up to them. The PNM always boasts that they are the oldest political party in Trinidad and Tobago. We know, we could tell. They are an institution stuck in the past. Kamla Prasad Bisesa has always said that our greatest asset is not our oil, not our gas, not even our land, but our people. Under her leadership, the United National Congress is saying the old way of doing things is over. No matter who you are, where you are from, no matter your race, your religion, your ethnicity, if you have a commitment to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to help make our nation a better place, then our political leader wants you to know that you have a home in the United National Congress. The United National Congress is the only truly national party. To the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, the UNC is the only space that you have a home, a true voice, and a true space at the decision-making table. And I want to tell the Rowley regime tonight that they can hurl whatever degrading insult or lies that they want. But on August 10th, the people of Trinidad and Tobago are going to stand up for our country. Our time is now. Keith Rowley and his regime belong in the past, and a brighter future belongs to all of us. Thank you.
hometown of our candidate for Toko Sandy Grande, Miss Nabila Green. And the reception here is fantastic. All of her family, her relatives, the entire village, they are out supporting. And I am confident that Nabila Green will bring victory to Toko Sandy Grande.
My darling friends, walk about. You're not saying nothing. I know. Say no more. Support. I know that. You're not saying nothing. You're going here, you have our full support. Right.
Hello Trinidad and Tobago. I am Peter Kanhai, Chairman of the United National Congress. I am in the constituency of Toko Sandy Grande today with our candidate, Ms. Nabila Green, for this constituency. And right at this moment, we are actually in Grand Riviere, Nabila's hometown, where she was born, bred, and grew up. And we are here campaigning with her to make sure that Nabila Green becomes the next Member of Parliament for Toko Sandy Grande, as well as to ensure that the United National Congress returns to government and Kamla Persad-Bissessar returns as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
Hi, I am Nabila Green, your candidate for Toko Sandy Grande. Presently, I'm in my hometown, Grand Riviere, with my UNC family, accompanied by biological family. We are on the ground, we're working hard, we're going from house to house, reminding my villagers rather, of how important it is to come out and vote for election day for the representation that we desperately need. Now is the time for proper representation. Now is the time to make sure and be registered. Now is the time where 50,000 jobs will be available if you come out and vote. Now is also the time for secondary school children to have access to laptops. Now is the time. Now is time to vote for Nabila Green.
Yeah.
Now is the time! No! The time is no! No! The time is no!
And I pledge to you that I will be of true service and ensure that your quality of life is dramatically improved by implementing an emergency 90-day plan after general elections are concluded and we have voted this failed Rowley government and the infamous MIA out of public office. I will continue to clear our drains, ravines and rivers to mitigate perennial flooding. Local labor will be used to build new retaining walls while repairing those in poor condition throughout the entire constituency, especially in areas such as Arangwes, Bridge Road, Silver Mill, Mount Hope Road, Mongdor Road, Quarry Drive, Hutton Street, Agustini Extension, and Farm Road. I will not let 4 years and 9 months elapse before repaving your roads. I will not tell you that nothing will be done because you did not vote for me. I will not chastise you when you seek my assistance. I will not be seen racing around the pothole roads in a fancy Mustang sports car. You will have regular access to me. I will visit your area once every 4 months. I will personally monitor every project undertaken by central and local government, and that will be designed to provide relief to you while transforming St. Joseph into a modern community. Our first capital must lead a change. I will provide tangible opportunities for our youth throughout with micro and small business initiatives. I will use our community centers and schools to facilitate vocational training where important trade skills will be taught and persons certified. This will be used to develop our national skills bank for our local industries while facilitating access to international labor markets in developed countries. On the issue of crime, Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, is recognized as the 6th most violent country in the world. Therefore, we must, this time around, give our armed forces the powers of arrest to complement the police service. All state security agencies must be properly equipped with the essential tools and continuous skills training to ensure anti-crime measures are practical, sustainable, and effective. Therefore, a new dispensation of restructuring the national security framework is coming. Special attention will be paid to home affairs so that conventional skill sets of the current divisions of national security will be better focused and utilized in the fight against criminals and criminal activities. More importantly, they will receive the important tools and resources to truly enhance essential competencies geared towards improving the detection rate of murders and other serious crimes. To bring immediate relief from the ongoing serious crime wave in our country, the following measures would be implemented. 1. Zoning based on spatial analysis of murders and other serious crimes. 2. Random polygraphing to be made mandatory for all security personnel. 3. Equipping the civil authority with key crime-fighting tools, such as purpose-built armored patrol vehicles. 4. Immediate formulation and implementation of comprehensive patrolling initiatives using UAVs, drones, aerial surveillance with purpose-built, cost-effective helos, satellite feed, mobile patrols, foot patrols, and surveillance operatives. 5. Set up specially protected hotlines for the public to protect their identities when reporting criminal activities. In effect, we will make all law-abiding citizens virtual police officers. 6. Complete the implementation of first world access control systems at all our ports of entry. 7. Recall all capable retirees to assist with daily administration, training, and mentoring so that a high percentage of the current national security force would be available for tactical measures, rather than being bogged down with routine administrative details. 8. The final point this evening is to formulate special groupings in high-crime police divisions and special snap and deliberate operations to consistently disrupt organized crime and criminal networks while apprehending hardened criminals. The UNC will motivate all security personnel by appropriately indexing their pension. The Defense Force retirement age will be increased to 60 years across the board. I will ensure that they have an enhanced medical plan for them and their families. I will also make housing more accessible. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I am reminding you that the UNC's main battle tank is rolling, and in command is none other than our esteemed leader, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and her gunner is none other than yours truly. I have my patriots locked and loaded, ready to destroy a failed Keith Rowley government, along with his MIA and all-rounder. Come August the 10th, vote them out. Ladies and gentlemen, the hunt is on.
Now is the time! No! 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 The time is no! 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 The time is no! No! No!
Thank you very much to the next MP for St. Joseph, Aloy Hunt. And we now introduce to the stage Mr. Rushton Parry.
Now is the time! No! 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 The time is no! 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 The time is no! Now is the time to put them out! The time is no! What time it is? What time it is?
Honorable Political Leader Kamala Prasad Bisesa, fellow candidates, soldiers of this great party, viewers and listeners on various frequencies and social media platforms, a pleasant good evening. Political Leader, I want to assure you that on the night of August 10th, 2020, Mayaro will be celebrating with you as we form the next government of Trinidad and Tobago. Better days are coming. I am most honored to be given the opportunity to speak tonight on issues affecting thousands of persons in the small and micro business sector. The small and medium-sized business sector has been one of the silent but hard-hit sufferers of the government's gross mismanagement of the economic fallout supervised by this Rowley regime. Many such business enterprises have folded up, some on the verge of shutting down, and thousands of workers are being displaced. This is a crisis that only the UNC is speaking about, and for which only the UNC has a prescribed solution. It is vitally important
to appreciate the essential role of small and medium-sized businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. Official figures indicate that there are more than 20,000 SMEs, which is about 85% of all registered businesses, employing more than 200,000 workers and contributing to 28% of national GDP. By any analysis, the small and medium-sized business sector is a critical engine for growth and a catalyst for national economic development. Let me be clear, the collapse of this economy was not caused by COVID-19. It started on September 18, 2015, when a most incompetent, heartless, and unimaginative regime took control of the government of Trinidad and Tobago under the leadership of Dr. Keith Rowley. COVID-19 exposed the brutality and carelessness of this Rowley administration during their term of governance. The further deterioration of the national economy as a result of COVID-19 heavily impacted SMEs, which are more financially vulnerable than the larger enterprises. Progressive governments around the world immediately introduced packages to assist those exposed and fragile businesses. These included economic disaster loans, worker assistance programs, tax refunds, employee retention provisions, and other targeted measures. Parliaments were summoned, at which there were meaningful discussions and plans. But in Trinidad and Tobago, the PNM moved in its typical painfully slow pace and made no effort to discuss the crisis in or out of our parliament. Eventually, there were nominal announcements of salary relief grants and other measures to support the working poor, but after a few months, only a few have benefited. A loan facility was touted by the Finance Minister for SMEs, but it is difficult to locate a single business person who has been able to access this provision easily. It was purposely bogged down by unnecessary red tape in true PNM style. The result of this government's incompetence is that the SME sector is facing the worst threat in its existence. In shutting the economy down, the government targeted SMEs, including the informal sector, as if they were the ones who were the purveyors of the COVID-19 virus. In reopening the economy now, bar proprietors have had to go to court to seek justice. Today, over 150 small contractors who employ a large number of workers are pleading for a share of the pie. In several cases, ladies and gentlemen, small businesses are finding that the goods that they normally sell are now being retailed by large companies. National and community chambers of commerce have pleaded in vain with this government to be fair to SMEs. The Manufacturers Association implored the ruling administration, saying that this is a human issue, and if the situation becomes protracted, it will put a strain on all resources with serious implications, just not for government and business, but more importantly, for all our families. The Greater San Fernando Chamber said weeks ago that 15% of SMEs are remaining permanently closed. Things have indeed worsened since. There is a similar state of affairs across the country, and it is getting worse day by day. TTMA, chambers, and others recommended certain specific measures, all of which were cruelly ignored by this heartless and inept PNM regime. On top of that, the government arbitrarily imposed brokerage charges on all imports, even small items, thus further sending up the operating cost of SMEs and retail prices to customers. This unwarranted move has also led to unnecessary delays and frustrating red tape in the conduct of business through our Customs and Excise Division. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a targeted attack on an already marginally profitable small and medium-sized business. This draconian step is causing further job losses and insecurity in the sector. The UNC has fought this punitive measure both in and out of the parliament, but this government has refused to relent. This failed PNM regime has identified itself as fiercely opposed to the success of this crucial SME sector. The PNM has no interest in the welfare of this important economic player. The PNM has no interest in the well-being of the thousands of people who are employed in this sector. The PNM has no interest in the people who have lost their jobs as a result of government's reckless and vindictive policy measures. This is an anti-people government. But Redemption Day is August 10th, when, among other things, the UNC 5 guiding principles for recovery, sustainable growth and diversification would begin to bear fruit. The economic master plan embraces people-centered government, pro-business measures, resilience, local content, and sustainability. Further, the 12 prosperity engines would engage the private sector in meaningful partnership in specific fields. Tax reductions is another major design to spur economic growth. The goal is to embrace Trinidad and Tobago's rich human and other resources in a sincere and lasting alliance for the greater good of us all. The UNC acknowledged the patriotism and outstanding historic role in nation building by owners of small and medium-sized businesses. We in the United National Congress, under the leadership of Kamla Persad-Bissessar, assure you that we will hold your hands, listen to your ideas, and implement policies to benefit you, your employees, your customers, and your respective communities. The UNC envisions a private sector-driven economy. Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar has consistently revealed her abiding faith in the people of Trinidad and Tobago and her vision for a modern, successful, and competitive economy. The UNC's guiding principles and prosperity engines would form the backbone of her carefully studied policy measures. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, a better day is just ahead for the SME sector and all citizens. So now is the time to save, protect, and grow out endangered small and medium-sized sector businesses. Now is the time to defend and rescue Trinidad and Tobago. Now is the time to safeguard our collective future, and now is the time to vote the United National Congress. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Now is the time! No, 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 the time is no, 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 the time is no. Now is the time to vote them out. The time is no.
Thank you very much, Rushdan. And indeed, the government has taken so much away from the small business sector. I have the pleasure to introduce one of the new faces to the United National Congress, but indeed a very popular face to Trinidad and Tobago, and the next representative for Tuna Puna, Mr. David Naked.
Now is the time! No, 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 the time is no, 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 the time is no. Now is the time to vote them out. The time is no, no, no. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is?
My dear brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, and my UNC family, it has been my pleasure to travel through the constituency of Tinapuna in 21 days. And I'm amazed by the reception that we have had, and I have listened to your concerns and the issues that matter to you. In 21 days, I've been able to implement solutions that, according to a PNM supporter, they have not seen in 53 years of representation by the People That Never Party. The People That Never Matters Party have been abysmally disappointing in how they are represented in Tinapuna. They have failed in every way, in infrastructure, in the opening of schools, in keeping a high level of school education, in the water supply, and we have implemented solutions in 21 days that has resonated with our constituents. You have never heard from the People That Never Party anything about the most invaluable asset in Trinidad and Tobago. And no, it's not Petrotrin that they have shut down. No, it's not the healthcare that they have allowed to disintegrate. The most invaluable asset in Trinidad and Tobago is our young men and women, the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. And I have spoken with them. I have, with little or no resources, managed to initiate 2 agri projects. that I have employed 340 young men and women of Tinapuna. I have managed to initiate a mango processing plant that will go fully on stream once the UNC gets into government. And I've managed to implement 3 football teams that will represent Tinapuna in the way that we know the Tinapuna constituency deserves. Our methods in dealing with the youth is simply one. We show them love. We show them concern. It's a love that comes with a bit of toughness. It's a love that comes with a bit of accountability. I have not given to the youth of Tinapuna anything in their hands. I've asked them to work, and I've rewarded them. We have seen an immediate result. In 2 weeks, we'll have our first supply, our first production of patroy and lettuce in Okono. In 3 weeks, by the grace of God, we'll have 2 teams in sport and semi-pro teams where we have identified 3 football fields that we intend with a government, a UNC government, to improve not only the sport and discipline of football, but in aquatics, field and athletics, and table tennis. The policy of sport has been a failure by the People That Never Matters Party. They have never placed a technocrat that can identify what is needed. We have an amazing resource in the savannah. I intend to bring the sporting community into the 21st century. The young men and women of Trinidad and Tobago, they look on television, they look at the European leagues, they look at leagues around the world, and they see facilities that are state-of-the-art. We have none. Our stadiums are in disrepair. Our stadiums are never taken care of, and our young men and women basically are left to play in a savannah and parks around the country with high grass and little or no facilities that can accommodate and can be user-friendly. I've identified 3 places where we can implement, like we have in Europe, all-weather fields that will require little or no maintenance, and that can support a high technical level that will bring our football and our cricket and our field and athletics into the modern world, that will cause us to compete at a level that we should and we deserve. So I say to all of Trinidad and Tobago and all of my constituency in Tinapuna, it is time for us to realize that the policy of the People That Never Matters Party have failed. You have told me they have failed. The reactionary politics that the People That Never Matters Party can no longer serve you. Their politics of only mimicking what we have done can no longer serve you. Nice is not enough. Nice and ineffective can never deliver what you need. Nice and incompetent can never deliver what is expected. And nice with an incapacity can never be enough. So I say to my constituents, the choice is clear. The UNC government will provide for you, will deliver to you, and as I have shown in 21 days, you will have the representation that you deserve. And the young men and women of Tinapuna and the young men and women of Trinidad and Tobago can look forward to a much brighter future. I thank you and good night.
Now is the time! No! 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 The time is no! 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 The time is no! Now is the time to put them out! The time is no! 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 What time it is? No! What time it is? No!
Joining us on stage now is a man who has stood up for us in Parliament for the last 5 years, the MP for Naparima, Mr. Rodney Charles.
Now is the time! No, no, no. The time is no. No, no. The time is no. Now is the time to put them out. The time is no. No, no. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is? No.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago was once fighting in the heavyweight division of international diplomacy. We punched way above our weight in the global arena. For example, A&R Robinson was instrumental in the creation of the International Criminal Court. Carl Hudson Phillips served as a judge in the International Criminal Court from 2003 to 2007, paving the way for others like past President Anthony Carmona, SC, and Justice Geoffrey Henderson. We were riding high, and we are now fallen significantly under Keith Rowley. Given predecessor foreign policy P&M stalwarts like Eric Williams, Patrick Manning, Carl Hudson Phillips, Kamaluddin Mohammed, I say today, and do verily believe, that Keith Rowley is not a P&M. I will not say tonight that he is the proverbial snake in the Balize. What I will say is that he is one of the most unpatriotic leaders I know, and I know many. For example, he leaves the best healthcare system in the Commonwealth, his own words, here in Trinidad to get annual medical checkups in the United States. What has he done to uplift our great country except deplete our foreign exchange, sell our assets, raid our HSF, and place us one step above junk bond status by rating agencies? You know, it hurts. It hurts. The U.S. embargo against Cuba, it was Dr. Williams, Michael Manley, and Sir Grantley Adams. They stood up to the mighty United States on the basis of principle. Even the late Patrick Manning at Chogam debated the issue of climate change. We were punching above our weight. We, in the Summit of the Americas, world leaders beat a path to Port of Spain. This Rowley is not a leader. And to the P&M people, I say he is not a P&M. And I go further and say he is not a patriot. Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar hosted world leaders. Look at the comparison. Chinese President Xi Jinping chose Trinidad as his first stop in the Western Hemisphere upon assuming office. He came to Trinidad and Tobago in front of the United States, in front of Canada. He came to Port of Spain, and he was followed immediately by Vice President Joe Biden, now candidate for president in the United States. We were big in the dance. Trinidad was a country of note. We ran things. Things did not run us. And then came Keith Christopher Rowley. What a disaster. His first disaster, let me tell you, was choosing the hapless Dennis Moses as Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Those of us who read the Bible would know that the real prophet Moses led Israel out of the house of bondage and into the promised land. This Moses led us from the promised land that was bequeathed by Kamala Persad-Bissessar. He led us straight into the wilderness of diplomatic isolation and laughingstock status. So where are we today in international diplomacy? We have a prime minister who he cussing everybody. He cussed the U.S. ambassador, taking umbrage in Parliament. He cussed the OAS Secretary General. Because everybody in the UNC, I'm told he even cussed his own people, including the late Patrick, beloved Patrick Manning. He even cussed Gary Hunt for supporting his flesh and blood brother. But it reminds me, once you oppose my dear friend, he becomes a raging bull. Nothing, ladies and gentlemen, represents the disaster of the Rowley government better than the lack of a comprehensive refugee policy to deal with the increasing numbers of Venezuelans entering Trinidad and Tobago daily as a result of our porous borders. We are not abiding by our treaty obligations under the 1951 UN Refugee Convention. We are not protecting our borders. Here's Stuart Young. On May 10th, 2019, as reported in the Trinidad Express, and I quote, "A lockdown of TT borders is the reason why there's no sign of activity at the Cedars port." So he is boasting about a lockdown of the port. But a mere 2 weeks later, on May the 24th, the same Stuart Young was laughing and telling us with a straight face that it is impossible to monitor our small coastal borders completely. They're for real? A 400-kilometer perimeter impossible to secure? Now you see, they feel all of us stupid. They forgot that all of us went to school. And some of us did not do so on the 20% because we came from poor families. The UNC today is in the final stages of completing a comprehensive refugee policy that is humane, based on best practices, recognizes the limits of our absorptive capacity, adheres to international treaty obligations, and most of all, serves our national interests, especially our manpower needs. He refuses to accept that Venezuelans residing here are refugees because this would displease his friend Maduro. So where are we? He has registered 16,000 Venezuelans without a plan for them. At the last minute, they got an extension to stay. Still no plan on how to deal with those registered. What to do with the children born here who are citizens by birth? Are we testing them for COVID? And yet we are told that we have the best COVID practice in the world. My research tells me, data-driven, that you have a better chance of surviving COVID in Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent than in Trinidad and Tobago. One example, and I could give endless. Grenada, for example, has 23 cases of COVID, all recovered, 0 deaths. Grenada, 0 deaths. When done on a prorated basis, Grenada conducted a whopping 49,000 COVID tests per million of population. Let me repeat that. Grenada did 49,000 COVID tests per million of population. By comparison, Trinidad and Tobago did roughly 1/10, or 4,333 per million. So they did close to 50,000 tests per million. We did 4,000 per million. And Grenada did that without $20 billion and $1.6 billion from the US, from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. In fact, they did it with less than 20 million US. The same thing in St. Lucia, no deaths. The same thing in St. Vincent. So they don't see the need for a plan with anything. Everything they do is going along day to day. They're going along by VAPs, what Lloyd Best used to call policy on the verge, policy by chinks in. So we are diplomatically isolated at the OS, at hemispheric gatherings. We are not invited to meetings held by world leaders. We are not sitting at the table of world events. And as the saying goes, if you are not sitting at the table, you may very well end up on the menu. We need Kamala Prasad Bisesa to return to the government and bring sanity to the governance in Trinidad and Tobago. She needs to come quickly and bring sanity, bring respect and esteem to our global image. And come August the 11th, Trinidad and Tobago's international image shall rise again. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Now is the time! No, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no. Now is the time to vote them out. The time is no, no, no. What time it is? No. What time it is? No. What time it is?
Prasad Bisesa has promised us that the team, the UNC team, will be one of youth and experience. And I have the honor to present one of our most experienced professionals, Dr. Tim Gopi Singh.
Now is the time! No, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no. Now is the time to vote them out. The time is no, no. What time it is? No. What time it is? No.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anita Haynes, our Communications Director of the United National Congress, young and brilliant. Our distinguished and internationally distinguished political leader, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, supporters, activists of the United National Congress, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all who are viewing this virtual meeting and those listening on the airwaves throughout Trinidad and Tobago and in the wider Caribbean, United States, Canada, and Great Britain. Recently, newspapers and editorials headlined the serious and perilous neglect by this Rowley government of the urgent necessity for provision of laptops and/or ICT device and equipment to the SEA students, the CSEC and CAPE. There are about 18,000 SEA students, 18,000 CSEC students, and about 9,000 CAPE students. 45,000 students writing exams around now were left distressed by this government. This failed, incompetent Rowley government created and inflicted serious emotional and psychological hardships and suffering on thousands of parents and students. There are nearly 250,000 students in Trinidad and Tobago, about 126,000 in the primary schools, about 96,000 in the secondary schools, and over 30,000 in the early childhood education centers. Frustrated, desperate, and angry parents recently uploaded booklets to social media which elicited hundreds of negative comments towards the Ministry of Education and this Rowley government. Parents were saying they could not afford such a device. Tutor highlighted in May that teachers were trying to use various and whatever means that they could have found to engage students during this COVID stay-at-home period, when there was absence of laptops and ICT devices by both principals, teachers, supervisors, principals, etc. Imagine 5 years passed since 2015, and to this end of Rowley's, I would say, first, last, and only term as Prime Minister, this Rowley administration was struggling to take a position to provide laptops for teachers and were literally begging corporate sponsors to provide laptops to the nation's children. In May, they were now trying to source devices. What a shame, ladies and gentlemen. Teachers were being told that if they did not engage in online training, they would face penalties ranging from disciplinary action to cuts in salaries. How can they do online training when there are no laptops or devices for the teachers, far less the students, and more so the impoverished students? Can you really imagine this, distinguished ladies and gentlemen? Permit me to carry you back to 2010 to 2015 under the distinguished leadership of Mrs. Bisessa, a visionary Prime Minister at that time. Under her distinguished leadership, Mrs. Bisessa and our PP government ensured in 2010-2015 that in an era where ICT was a ubiquitous or omnipresent part of the social and cultural fabric of learning, communication, and social interaction, that our students were never left behind. Her motto was always, no child must be left behind, no one must be left behind, because she believed in the principle of human capital development carrying the country forward. The introduction of the PP's government eConnect and Learn, what we call the eCal laptop initiative in 2010, had carried Trinidad and Tobago in line with emerging international best practice and afforded equity by leveling the playing field across the educational landscape, leveling the playing field from those who have and those who did not have. All students entering secondary schools for the first 5 years receive laptops without regard to their socio-economic standing, allowing access to computers and attendant technologies. 98,000 laptops were provided to students, teachers, principals, school supervisors. The one laptop per student policy had contributed immensely to the empowerment of students towards the developing and mastering of information and communication technologies, competencies, and the achievement of digital literacy. Trinidad and Tobago became a leader in the world. We were a leader in Latin America and in the Caribbean, even alongside Uruguay, Brazil, and Argentina, and in line with what Russia was doing when they had 3,000 schools starting with one computer per student. The provision of laptop computers to students for continuous personal use enables students to gain proficiency in various ICT skills at school and at home, while learning at their own pace. In research conducted by the Ministry of Education in 2015, students in secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago reported acquiring competence in various ICT skills. 71% of students develop medium to high skill level in creating and editing presentations using PowerPoint. 79% of students had competence in manipulating documents and applications. Students were able to create and edit a spreadsheet, word processing tasks, and prepare presentations. Over 70% of students use their laptops daily or weekly to do homework and search for information using internet. Students had also indicated a greater desire to attend classes and actively participate in class sessions when laptops and other digital devices were incorporated into teachers' pedagogy and methodologies. Teachers incorporated the use of computers and laptops in their teaching strategy, as well as for the preparation of lesson plans, scheme of work, and the development of assessment instruments. And I can go on and tell you about the accomplishments of Mrs. Bisessa's administration with ICT and the laptops during 2010 and 2015. Over 8,000 teachers, principals, and school supervisors were trained at various levels of ICT. In the areas of computer literacy, thousands of teachers got ICT resources, technology education, teaching and training in digital literacy. Their training courses were aligned with knowledge deepening and knowledge creation levels of the UNESCO ICT competency standards for teachers. In our 125 secondary schools, we had fully functional computer labs, thousands of students accessing these labs. Over 110 secondary schools were equipped with more than 15 fully functional maintained computers and labs through 150 highly trained ICT technicians. When they came into office, they fired all the ICT technicians. All the computer labs were left to ruin, and of course, they gave not one laptop to a child. We had even gone further to have 367 schools, primary schools, equipped with computer labs, and we were on the pathway to ensuring the other 87 primary schools were equipped. Mrs. Bisesa had indicated at that time we were going to move with e-textbooks for the secondary school students in mathematics and language arts in Form 1, and we already had the template and the various technological backbones to back it up. We partnered with Samsung to achieve 21st century smart classrooms. That is the leadership, each equipped with 30 PCs, laptops, interactive whiteboards, and high-speed internet access. We brought the cost of the laptop down from $4,000 in 2010 to $3,600 to $3,300 and to $2,200 for a laptop by 2015. If Rowley's government had decided to continue, which they did not, they would have had to spend possibly about $180 million for the computer. So rather than spending $80 million to construct one primary school in Tobago, and $400 million for a Manzanilla highway, and $485 million to restore the President's house, and another $500 million for the Red House, were you taking away $180 million from the students, which is 0.6% of the budget? They spend nearly $30 billion in education over the 5 years. So 0.6% of the budget could have gone to provision of laptops for the students. And I want to remind the population that Mrs. Bisesa, as Prime Minister, provided over 2 million textbooks for students in our schools. Every child in every school, in every subject, in every class received a new textbook during the 5 years, in 32 subjects at CSEC and 33 at Cape. Rowley's government and ministers of education, they spread deliberate, hypocritical, mischievous pieces of propaganda, disturbingly meant to deceive the population and lie to the population, and they are well noted for lying to the population. They said we did not have internet access to schools, whereas 28% of schools had internet access after 5 megabits per second. 43% had between 10 to 25, and 28% had above 25 megabits per second. And 10 of these schools had bandwidth up to 100 megabits per second. The quality of the laptops was superior, and I was able to put my hand on some information regarding the technical specification for laptops. Processor speed was 1.66 gigahertz. Memory was 2 gigabytes. The video card was integrated, maximum display 14 inches, network speed 1000 megabits per second, webcam integrated, antivirus software, tracking recovery software. Our political leader and Prime Minister at that time always says, when we decided to introduce that, they said they will thief the laptops. The first one they thief, we caught them because we had the software device on the laptop, and the person made a jail for 9 months. Ladies and gentlemen, in early September 2014, and I quote from Hansard 2010, on an appropriation bill budget debate, a few months into Mrs. Bisesa's government, opposition leader then Rowley said, and I quote, "The Minister of Education has a laptop for you. He thinks you're as dunce head first former." That is what he was calling the first formers, dunce head. Prime Minister Rowley and his hopeless ministers of education and his government has put tears in the eyes of thousands of our nation's children and parents and guardians. They perpetuated inequity and took away the hope of ownership of a laptop by some children who at this time are yearning to have one and whose parents cannot simply afford one. There's a lot more to be said at subsequent times, my dear brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. But let me close by saying the respective approaches of Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar and Dr. Rowley to the issue of laptop computers and the ICT sector distinguish them apart as leaders. Dr. Rowley is visionless, clueless, and is buried and fossilized in the archaic and irrelevant P&M policies of the 1950s. Dr. Rowley is the straw person of the horse and buggy era, a political antique and an outmoded thinker. Mrs. Bissessar, on the other hand, has a world view of Trinidad and Tobago, becoming a strong and competitive global leader, has been and continued to appropriately invest in our youths. Her vision has always been for our students to ascend to become world transformative leaders, capable of providing quality and defined leadership in various fields of science, technology, engineering, research, and mathematics in the international community and ever-changing global scientific age. Mrs. Bissessar's insistence on modern ICT learning, pedagogy, and competencies in this era of artificial insemination and robotics define her as competent, visionary, determined to guide a nation, motivate our students, and build our world leaders from Trinidad and Tobago. This is what is at stake at this election. Competence, brilliance of Mrs. Bissessar versus incompetence, promises, visionless clumsiness of Prime Minister Rowley. Great judgment of Mrs. Bissessar versus ineptitude of Dr. Rowley. The choice is clear now. On August 10th, Trinidad and Tobago must re-elect Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to restore her historic leadership of our people and as a distinguished global luminary. On election day, vote the United National Congress. Put your X to the rising sun, and we will be with you to govern you again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
No, no, the time is no, 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 the time is no. Now is the time to put them out. The time is no, no. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. Now is the time to cast your vote. Now is the time to start to work. Now is the time we bring you home. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to take a stand. Cause the UNC have the plan. Put up your hand if you understand. Hey!
So let's all join together as one. If you believe that the time has come, election day when you stay in your hand.
It's for the UNC and the rising sun, 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 sun. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. Now is the time to build a nation, to see for the children education. It's time for a leader who have a plan. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to reduce the tax. Now is the time for all crime to stop. This is the time we're not giving up.
So let's all join together as one. If you believe that the time has come, election day when you stay in your hand.
It's for the UNC and the rising sun, 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 sun. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. Now is the time to go them out. 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 Now is the time.
So let's all join together as one.
Let's all join.
If you believe that the time has come,
No, the time has come.
election day when you
On
stay in
August
your
10th.
hand. It's
It's for the UNC and the rising sun, 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 sun. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. What time it is? What time it is? What time it is? Now is the time for action. Now is the time to cast your vote. Now is the time to start the work. Now is the time we bring you home. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to take a stand. Cause the UNC have the plan. Put up your hand if you understand. Now is the time to pull them out. 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 Now is the time to pull them out.
Thank you.
No, no, no. The time is no, no, no. The time is no, no, no.
At a time when our country is in turmoil, many are crying out for leadership. As we face a crucial general election, she presents not just herself, but her years of experience and ideas to the nation. She's not alone. On her side is the strongest, smartest, and diverse team that's ready to lead a brighter tomorrow. Now is the time to get it right with the brightest candidates, a tested master plan, and most of all, a progressive political party, the United National Congress. It's with great honor to present to the nation and the thousands online, on air, and around the world, the clear choice for Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. On the ballot now, Senior Counsel, Kamla Prasad Bisesa.
Everyone, I'm very happy to join with you again tonight in this virtual, and I'm very energized. I've spent the last many days in constituencies like Barataria, San Juan, before that Maruga Tableland, San Fernando West, we were there until last night, St. Joseph. Tomorrow we will journey to La Hoqueta Talparo. On Saturday, we go to Tunapuna. On Sunday, we'll go to Toco San Grande. I'm telling you, I can feel the winds of change blowing in the air. I can feel it, I can smell it, I can taste it. The UNC is going to win the election on August 10th. I feel it all along that corridor and elsewhere, based on the motorcades we've been having and the walkabout. So, look, our teams are telling us everywhere in this country, the winds of change are blowing. A change is going to come, and that change is that the UNC will form the next government of Trinidad and Tobago. So good night to you. As I visited in the various constituencies, it is very clear that our infrastructure is at the worst ever. Roads, drains, bridges, the cry for water, and above all, people are crying out for just basic food on their tables. And I want to tell you tonight, I give you the assurance, we see, anytime we see a dark cloud in the sky, we know and we're scared it's going to flood. Once it rains, we're scared it will flood. And even though with all the rains, we cannot get water, a basic cry throughout the country. And so what we've done in our master plan, we have plans included therein to establish something we have called a National Physical Infrastructure Improvement Plan. A National Infrastructure Improvement Plan. In 5 years under this Rowley administration, our nation's physical infrastructure is in a state of collapse. Our roads are deteriorating. Flooding is always a problem. Traffic continues to result in thousands of hours of manpower loss, and of course, reduced productivity. So what we need to do is to develop that infrastructure, to maintain that infrastructure, and of course, to provide opportunities for business development, at the same time, to create jobs. I want to share some of our plans for rebuilding our country. As I mentioned, a national physical infrastructure improvement plan. First, we have to fix the traffic problem. Traffic congestions affects every aspect of your life. Limited time available to spend with your families, with your loved ones. You notice, you experience it every day. Frustration, the stress, the road rage sometimes, sitting in traffic for hours. So we have to deal with the congestion in the traffic. We have several proposals to help us deal with traffic congestion. Let me list some of those. One, construct a park and ride facility at appropriate locations, Arima, Chaguanas, Couva, Grande, Tunapuna, San Fernando, along the corridor. Two, establish a water taxi hub at Point 14. Now this will help us to move people, again to ease the traffic congestion. What we do have, we have the water taxi, San Fernando, Port of Spain. We need to take it lower down into Point 14. In addition, we have a plan to implement a bus rapid transit system. Many countries have used this with great success, Brazil and Argentina, for example. So this will have a dedicated, predictable bus rapid transit system from north to south and east to west, again to help us make transport affordable and indeed to help with traffic congestion. We need to continue a process we started before, which is decentralization of government ministries, which will reduce the traffic into and out of Port of Spain. So yes, you cannot put everything in Port of Spain and expect everyone to travel to Port of Spain for every single thing. You know, when we were in government, we had set up all over the country decentralized legal affairs, so that you could go into places other than Port of Spain to get deeds, to get birth certificates, death certificates, online. Well, they abandoned all of that. Again, centralizing into Port of Spain. That's great, but the traffic is tremendous, and we need to ease up that congestion. So, decentralize government services. Given COVID and indeed the way technology is moving, another proposal we have is to implement a remote work policy. COVID has taught us that. You can stay off-site and you can still get your work done. So we want to look at that as well to help us. And indeed, we can put into place a flexi-time work policy. What does that mean? It means that instead of everybody having to reach to work at the same point in time, people can have a flexi time. You come a little later, you leave a little later, so not everybody is on the road at the same moment in time. This can certainly work. It has worked in other countries. So these are just some ideas we have to deal with traffic congestion. In addition, we will look at providing incentives to businesses and persons to buy electric and hybrid vehicles. This will put a dent, of course, in the high fuel subsidies and help us reducing air pollution. Some ideas for traffic congestion, but I must say with respect to roads and bridges and so on, we will have to do a remedial program with respect to road repairs, road upkeep. I don't think they've done anything in 5 years, and guess what's happening now? They are starting to try to pave everything in these last few days before an election. I'm told in some areas, the residents are telling them, go away from here. You think you can fool me again? You come with 2 weeks to go to an election, less than about 2 weeks, 17 to 18 days, and what are you saying? Pave, 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 pave. You know what I'll tell those people? They will not pay you before the 10th of August. They're just getting you out there to work. Indeed, they're not even paying you now. They're owing the contractors, they're not paying them. And people are seeing the gimmick and the PR relations. Now is a time of the silly season of ribbon cutting and shoveling, turning sod. None of which will happen before August 10th. So I think people understand that. I don't think you can fool them as you did before. So I talked about traffic congestion. Let me talk a little bit now about flood prevention. Lord, I know we're in the rainy season. This tropical storm is on the way. We don't know if it will develop into a hurricane. And just, if I may pause to say, we have put all the UNC corporations on high alert to be ready in the event that there should be damage, there should be flooding, and the need for services. You would have seen every time there's been flooding or any disaster in this country, it has been the UNC corporations, the UNC soldiers, they have been on the ground. One year I even turned up, I don't know, I went one place where there was flooding. And there was a boat, and they asked me to get into the boat to go up and meet some homes, you know, along that little riverside. And the boat was a yellow boat. I didn't make that happen, it just happened. I was there with this yellow boat giving families help, and I promise you the UNC will be on the ground should there be the damage, should there be a need to help our citizens. We'll be first out on the ground should anything happen. The UNC will be there with you. We've always been there with you, and we'll continue to be there with you. So, flood prevention program. Yes, we will put our agencies on alert, we put our activists on alert, but let's look into, you know, outside the immediate term in case the tropical storm should hit us badly. But we have to have a plan. This government has done nothing with respect to helping put systems in place to do the work to prevent the flooding in the first place. So what we have in mind are some of the following plans, proposals you call them, to help us to deal with alleviating flooding. One, cleaning and desilting rivers. You know, I remember many, many moons ago when John Humphrey was the Minister of Works. He was a great minister, by the way. He was a very visionary person. So that would have been in the way back when, in the NAR days, if I'm not mistaken. And where my parents lived, always flooded. Downstairs of our home was always flooded. And John Humphrey did a thing that up to today, that area doesn't flood anymore. He desilted the rivers. There were rivers on the left side, on the right side of the main road. He desilted all those rivers. And up to today, from 86, and now we are in 2020, we have not had that flooding in that area. So it's very important for desilting rivers. I want to remind you, when we were in government, we had gotten a loan, I think it was an IDB loan, to deal with flooding and helping with flooding. I want to ask the Rowley government, where has that money gone? Because this is very clear that you have not used it for the purposes that it was intended for, to help with the flooding. So one, desilting rivers, a major, major thrust in terms of helping with flooding. Secondly, the water runs off. Where does it go? If the ocean, if the water, the sea, Caribbean Sea, wherever it is, on whichever side, Atlantic on one side, Caribbean Sea on the other, and so on, when the rivers come down and they meet the high tide, it backs up because the river cannot flow as it naturally should into the sea waters. So it backs, and when it backs up, what happens? It backs up into, way back up the river to create the flooding all along. So another area we can look at is to create sediment traps and check dams along the river courses. So you have them like retention ponds, so that excess water will have a place to rest. And what can we do with that excess water? Every time you tell me the dam empty, this will be water trapped and kept not to floodlands, but to be used for purposes that we use water for, whether for agricultural access, whether for normal drinking water, industrial use, and so on. So the construction of these sediment traps and check dams in the upper reaches of priority water courses. That's another plan that we have. Thirdly, to construct water detention ponds and levees and placing pumps and gates in strategic locations. You know, again, I remember so much, you know, when we were growing up and where my grandparents lived, my Aji and Aja, they were agricultural people, and there was a huge river flowing by. And there was something called a floodgate. And that was an exciting thing when the floodgates open and when they shut the floodgates. And that is something they have all been abandoned in many parts of Trinidad. They've abandoned these floodgates, which could help you with floodgating the waters. So you know when to shut it down, when to open it, to prevent the flooding. That's something else we would need to look at. Put the pumps in strategic locations. So recently I went with our Councillor Amit in the Aranguez area where a lot of flooding. And what had gone wrong is they have pumps there, but the pumps just were not working. So again, the deterioration of infrastructure in this country under this Rowley regime, that is something we'll have to pay great attention to. Further, we must remove accidental and illegal blockages in water courses, culverts, and bridges. Further, we must maintain main, secondary, and tertiary drains. And yet further, we have to increase drainage capacity. So these are the bare bones of the policy to help us with flooding. But there are serious issues that we will flesh out, that we have fleshed out, will not permit us time. Again, for all these plans, I ask you to go again, uncplan2020.com. uncplan2020.com, our master plan for transformation of our country. Now you'll be asking me, Kamala, how are you going to do this? Where are you going to get the money? Because you say you're going to lower taxes. You're going to lower taxes. How are you going to get the money to do these things? Well, we do have a financing strategy, which I'll share with you. Firstly, for this respect, we will establish a national infrastructure fund. And this fund will be used to support investments in public transport, green infrastructure, including solar, water and wastewater facilities, climate resilient infrastructure, and social infrastructure such as greenhousing. This fund will reduce government's need to borrow or to increase taxes. Take note, it will reduce the need of government to borrow or to increase taxes. Notice this government, their only financing strategy is what? Tax, 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 borrow, 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 and spend. No, this fund will help us to do our infrastructure projects, whether they be roads, airports, seaports, hotels, and it will also reduce issues related to transparency and accountability. How will we capitalize the fund? In other words, where will we get the money to put in the fund to invest in infrastructure? Where will we get it? We will not be borrowing, we will not be taxing, but we have another capitalizing mechanism, and that is the cash balances of state-controlled institutional investors like NIB, UTC. We can use their cash balances to mobilize an initial $4 billion in capital for the National Infrastructure Fund. Think of that carefully. We will leverage the cash balances to get the about $4 billion initially. In addition to using state enterprises, we will ask private institutional investors, such as life insurance companies, pension funds. We can ask them to become shareholders or investors in the National Infrastructure Fund. So we'll have government funding into it, and we will have private investment in it. We can ask the private investors, as they become shareholders, we can list this on the stock market. So there's productivity, there's growth, and there's, of course, development. And in addition to all our jobs, and more jobs will be created. And these instruments, ownership in it, in the fund, can be assets for long-term investors. And this fund will be listed, as I said, at the local stock exchange, and will encourage wide participation. How will the fund be managed? We do not propose to put ministers to manage the fund, because that's, I think, where we make a mistake all the time. And the Rowley government has a policy where everything that they do, they must put the minister in the middle of it, on the top of it, in the center of it, everywhere. We will have a board of directors elected each year, not appointed, elected each year by the owners. Who are the owners I mentioned before? Government will have a shareholding, but we'll also open it, as I said, to private investors and put it on the local stock market. So these shareholders, as in private companies, will be able to run the company, and the board will be elected by the shareholders. The management will have flexibility in the financial instruments which can be used to raise money from investors. Now, some of this may be above the heads of some of us, but many of us are asking me every time I speak of my plans, Kamala, where you are going to get money? Pie in the sky. This is where I'm explaining some of it, of where money will come from to fund infrastructure development. I turn now to another issue that is really, to me, one of the most shameless things that a government has ever done in any country in the world. Well, maybe this is the second shameless thing. The first shameless thing was to close down Petrotrin. A man who told the nation the government is not closing down Petrotrin. And if you were closing your fridge door, opening your fridge door, the government is not closing on Petrotrin. You hear lie? That was lie and remains a lie. I am very concerned, as many are. The government is now saying, with 18 days, I think, 17 or 18 days left to go for an election, on the eve of an election, you want to now sign the deal to give away Petrotrin. I think if there's anything to cause concern, this is one of the greatest fears that we should have, where government, 17 or 18 days before an election, wants to sign a deal that they could not sign for the last 2+ years. What has made it different? You owe an explanation to the citizens, because that is a patrimony of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and you have a duty to explain how it is 17 or 18 days before an election, you are ready to sign the deal. So that, I said, is a shameful thing on the part of any government. But another very shameful and sad and traumatizing thing is the way our government has treated our stranded citizens who are abroad. They are like vagrants there. They are like stateless people. They have no home. They have no nation. You have disenfranchised them because you will not bring them back in time to vote. But you have also taken away their basic constitutional right of belonging to a state. No individual is stateless, but you have made them stateless by abandoning them outside. You have abandoned them outside. How are they living? 10,000 people. Our stranded citizens, man, how can you do this? And then you tell us you bring back 4,000. You gave permission for 4,000 plus people to come. By today, it's probably more. What criteria did you use? How did you choose who should come in? If any government should be voted out of office on August 10th, it is a Rowley government should go. They must go, they must go. And you ask me, what's my plan? I shared with you my plan since in a early. Dr. Tim is here, you remember when we went in a meeting with Dr. Rowley. You recall that? We presented an entire plan that had 5 pillars in it of how we will deal with the threat from the COVID. Of course, he abandoned and threw everything apart. Praises himself for treating with COVID, when the only plan he had was to shut the borders down. They had no plan pre-COVID, no plan during COVID, and no plan post-COVID, a roadmap to nowhere, which he has presented to the country. And instead now, they are trying to incite fear. They kept saying Kamala wants to open borders. She wants to bring COVID. And it happened, people drop like flies. Here, blame Kamala again. When you as a government cannot have a plan, do not have a policy position to repatriate our citizens back to where they belong. Our citizens who want to come home must be given that chance. I've said that repeatedly. What is even more damning is that they condemn us for wanting people to come home with health protocols in place. While they reject our own citizens, hundreds of illegal fellows coming through the borders. Illegally coming in, hundreds. And then you're going to bring hundreds more to play cricket with the CPL. But our own citizens, no, you can't come home. I want to say, I said last week, I said we have a plan how to deal with it. The plan is clear. Every country in the world is repatriating their citizens, bringing them home, have been doing so. And how can they do it? Because there are protocols, health protocols to allow that to happen. Once we follow the health protocols, we will be doing what the rest of the world has been doing. You cannot abandon over 10,000 citizens of your country. You cannot do that. That is worse than, I think, slavery and indentureship. To just give up 10,000 of our people, man. Mr. Rowley, there are COVID protocols, health protocols. You do not have to be a rocket scientist, or certainly you're not. Maybe a rock scientist, but certainly not a rocket scientist. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. The protocols are already there to bring home your citizens. You know, remember in the Bible it said, let my people go. Now I'm calling on the government to let our people come home. Let them come home. They have to come home, and I commit that should we form the government, we will bring our citizens home and will utilize the health protocols which every other country in the world is using. Government has failed as well in testing. They have failed at testing. Why do we have, I think Rodney mentioned it tonight, MP Rodney Charles, about 40 COVID tests per day after 5 months. In 5 months, 40 per day, that's about 0.34% of our population, okay? I quote from an article reported in a daily paper. Notwithstanding all of this, we must all recognize that our sense of comfort and confidence is based on testing of a very limited pool of persons, about 4,600 in all. In a population, 6,100 tests have been conducted. Population of 1.3 million, this is, as I say, 0.34%. Look at what happens in other countries. The USA have done 50 million tests. Rodney told us tonight how many tests have been done in Grenada. UK, 9 million. Italy, 6.35 million. Turkey, 4.4 million. Spain, 4.07 million. Singapore, a very small country, 1.17 million. Zimbabwe, 41,400. Trinidad and Tobago, 6,186. And guess what? They say we are #1 in the world. Lies again, misleading people. We are #1 in the world. The Minister of Health and Rowley, they shamelessly sell to our country, we are #1 in the world, having done 6,000 whatever. Other countries, over millions of tests. We have done 6. So, and I wonder if that inability to test may be the reason why they have refused to repatriate our citizens, refused to bring them home. You see, their public relations, their press conferences, their PR gimmickry and so on, only masks their incompetence for a short period because they will be exposed. I want to make it very clear. I repeat it. And somebody put a headline which is totally erroneous to what I said. I want to make it very clear tonight. The UNC will bring our stranded citizens home. We will not soften our stance on repatriating our citizens, and we will utilize World Health and world standards of health protocols to bring our citizens home. The scenes playing out now like something in a horror movie at Pennywise, Republic Bank today. They only serve to show that their only plan was to do what? Just close the borders. They flattened the curve. How? By flattening the testing. They flattened the curve because they were not testing. They flattened the testing. They are now using fear and chaos as a means to cover their failures in this pandemic. Our country, our people, our citizens cannot stand still and mark time wherever they are in the world until a vaccine is found. How long are we going to leave them out? Where will they get money to live when they're outside there? How are they living? How will they take care of health? How will they take care of their families? We cannot wait until a vaccine is found because we have no idea how long that will take. But what we do know is we can follow the protocols and we can bring our citizens home. So friends, we have to get working again through proper plans and protocols to ease the consequences for our economy and for our citizens. And then we know we can be much greater than we can even imagine. I repeat, they never had a plan pre-COVID. They never had a plan during COVID. And they have no plan post-COVID. We have a plan, we had a plan, and we will have a plan. It is all together we've done it. We are the only party. We are the only party in this country who has a comprehensive master plan for transforming Trinidad and Tobago to get our people working again, to get Trinidad and Tobago working again. So I asked Mr. Rowley, you come on the platform with all these stories back from 2015 and 13 and 2012. Look, this is 2020. You are not fighting the 2015 elections with your lies and your email gates and all your stories. People have seen that you cannot perform. You did not perform for almost 5 years. So tonight I ask you, you didn't do it for the almost 5 years. Where are your plans for the next 5 years? Is your next plan to deal with those things you talk about on the platform, where you've been talking about them for 5 years and you cannot arrest one person yet except your own member of parliament. You said follow the money. 5 years you're following money. And where did you find it? Your own MP is now before the courts on a criminal charge. 5 years you're threatening the UNC. And you've been doing it pre-2015 election, and you're still doing it. And yet still, with 17 days to go, you want everybody to believe that you are the corruption buster. Listen, fellow, let me tell you. I stood for everything I could have when I was in government. I made it clear where there were allegations of corruption. We dealt with it. Some of my ministers will tell you I was too harsh. But we dealt with it and said, go clear yourself and come back. You stayed with Darrell Smith, and you now come in today on the eve of an election to try to explain Darrell Smith. Now explaining it. Where is your plan? You have no plan. You never had a plan. You never had any achievements to help people. And so you cannot come in 2020 holding up fake emails, making up more fake stories, and say you're the corruption buster. Sir, that's not going to work. It will not cut water at this time. People are battered and abused, and you must go. Your whole government must go. And I say the depths that they will go. Tonight I stand in solidarity with all my candidates. I stand in solidarity with our candidate for Toko Sandy Grande, where they've gone to desperate lengths to attack her. And that's how they've always operated with women. Women shaming. What do you all have with women? This is the Prime Minister has abused women in the worst way, in public. Me, I have been the prime target of that, but many other women. They have something so that is so against women. Why are you attacking the women? When you have Darrell Smith in your cabinet right up until it, when they hit the fan, as they say, when it was so much more, you just couldn't hold it anymore. That is when you acted. And then what you did, you shifted him. And then when the pressure came, then you moved. I acted wherever there were issues. I acted. In fact, Rowley used to come as opposition, and, oh, Kamala find people every Monday morning. He had Marlene in and out, one in, out, in, out, in, out. Never dealt with the issue. Never dealt with it. And then he comes now with a history of attacking women. And so it's Trump suit and follow the leader. I stand with my candidates. I stand with Nabila and Toko Sandy Grande, and I tell her, keep strong. Keep strong. You're a strong, brilliant young woman. And it wasn't even you. And that's another lie. It's another lie. They operate on desperate lies to scandalize and defame everyone. The people of our country deserve much better than that. And so I urge all of you who are interested in genuine national development, our doors are open to you. There's a space for everyone. I've shown that clearly. And you know, I was in San Fernando West yesterday and in the other constituencies. And young Sean Sobers, he's running in front of our truck. And he was walking and running, jogging along the road from Marabella, if anybody knows the south, all the way across down Superior Street. We ended up somewhere even going down into Orbuch West, down Gulfview, Belly. The man never stopped moving. He was like a Flash Gordon on the ground. And so I'm happy I have the young ones, and the not so young ones. Tonight we heard from a veteran, Dr. Tim Gopi Singh. We have his wisdom, his experience. Tonight he shared with us some of that. And we will continue to ask him to share his wisdom with us. We have the not so young with us, Rodney Charles, also a veteran, former ambassador, MP, great experience, and Rushton Paré, who's now had 5 years as a parliamentarian with us. But we also have the younger ones, Anita Haynes, senator for several years. We have Naked, we have Aloy Hunt. So we married the two, and we can only get better. Things will only improve when we get the experience married together with the wisdom and the brilliance of young youth and the exuberance. Before I close, I know we started a bit late tonight, and I wish I could have shared with you some more things that I have here on agriculture, but I'll leave it for another night because our run time is out with the coverage. I will have to find out why we started late tonight. I can talk about agriculture, but I just want to share something. I think Anita mentioned it. You know, there's a saying, those who the gods first wish to destroy, they make them mad. Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make them mad. And today I think is madness when I saw, with less than 3 weeks, 17 days, 18 days to go, you know, before a general election, the Rowley administration with glossy flyers and RSVP invitations and so on, put out some saga boy photos of the Prime Minister Rowley and some of AG Faris. Saga boy photos and glossies and so on. And doing what? Announcing their latest campaign scheme or gimmick. And what is it? The Prime Minister wants to host a lime. A lime. Well, the man has been liming for the past 5 years. He wants to host a lime. That's his latest campaign PR. And in the meantime, his AG, Faris Al-Rental, who has benefited so much from his government, while so many people are suffering, the $23 million man, Faris Al-Rental, he wants to host a cocktail lime. Now that is grotesque. In a time when so many people are suffering, so many people cannot put food on their table, this is their campaign strategy. When they should be out there doing what Naked is doing up in Tunapuna, what Alloy is doing up in St. Joseph, what Saddam is doing, what Rushton is doing, what Rodney Charles, what our candidates are doing. They're out on the field and they're helping with projects on the ground. Jillian John up the road, the agri projects, which the Naked is also doing. So many projects helping people. These fellas want to have what? A lime. But look, on August 10th, let's put them out to pasture, and they could lime every single day, every single hour, every single minute, in every month of the entire year. Let's put them out of office on August 10th and send them home to lime. That is madness if you ever see it. So, yes, man. Digital economy. Now, I spoke of digital economy so many times. I've been talking about the digital economy since 2010. That's when I put the laptops in the book bags of the children. Digital economy. Their whole campaign has been, as I say, blame Kamala, blame the UNC, and blame the world. And last night or his last meeting, he's talking about what? Digital economy. This is a man whose government took away the laptops. Tim spent some time here tonight sharing with us what we had been doing. Telling people now they have to buy laptops. Yes? Remember when they came into office, they promised free Wi-Fi. Anybody get the free Wi-Fi yet? It's the same way that nobody has got the free LED light bulb. Their lies and their promises, you know. They said they'll put free Wi-Fi on a bus that runs from Port of Spain to San Fernando and call that nationwide Wi-Fi. Did anybody get it? Free Wi-Fi, anybody get it? Nobody got it. And you took away your laptop and you now coming to talk to this country about digital economy. I talked about the fourth industrial revolution from day one. I've continued to speak of it. I speak of it in every budget debate, the fourth industrial revolution, that is the new world that we have to live in. COVID has now made it imperative. COVID has now shown us that is the only way to go, but we were talking about it long before COVID. So the guy is saying, well, she has been talking about this plan since last year, what was it, 2019? Yes, I did. I spoke not just digital, my master plan. In the last budget reply, I gave a comprehensive plan. So his plan is not a fly-by-night I make up on the fly, like what he's trying to do now. I've had this plan there from since 2019. We've been adding to it as we go a long time. We've been adding things to it. When the COVID hit us, we've now added some other measures to help us with the COVID situation. But the master plan is there, it will be there, and we will implement that when you put us back to office on August 10th. So he complains, I'm just regurgitating a plan. Sir, you have none, absolutely none. You have not a plan, you have not an idea, not a policy. Your only way is to buff up everybody and hope that they will fear you enough, they'll be afraid, and so you think, well, things don't work like that again. They think they'll vote for you because they're scared of you. Not anymore. Not anymore. I don't know why somebody called you a Rottweiler and a Wajang, but maybe they had very good reason to do so in terms of your behavior. So here we are, digital economy. How do we harness the digital economy? What we will do, a new UNC government will do, we will increase investment in research and development to 1% of GDP. You see, when I told you we have smart plans and we have smart targets. It is because we have actually put targets that we have to meet. We're not just saying we'll do R&D, research and development. We're saying we'll do it to 1% of GDP. What that means, we'll take 1% of GDP and invest it in research and development. We will allocate those funds between UTT, NIHRS, for research on the Internet of Things, on artificial intelligence, robotics, and blockchain. And we'll get the relevant intellectual property protections. That's one. Increase research and development investment in order to harness the digital economy. Further, we will establish a national venture capital fund to promote technology entrepreneurship via collaboration with local and international private investors to finance technology startups. We'll also establish a digital innovation park where private investors, digital innovation park, where private investors will fund development for local and international entrepreneurs, firms to create a cluster of world-class export companies. This will be in selected areas of innovation and technology like finance, agriculture, health, payment processing, software development, call centers, business processing, outsourcing. And then government will provide appropriate incentives to attract tech companies to set up innovation launchpads. Local software developers, IT professionals will therefore have a platform to have access to regional and global ideas and opportunities. Still talking about harnessing the digital economy. Creating the app development investment program. I spoke about this before, and this is something I'm very proud of. The app development investment program. I told you that government will partner with an independent organization. We'll invite young people to pitch their ideas to a panel which will evaluate and recommend. Government will then invest and fund development of selected apps, retaining 49% shareholding, as I said, would turn out to be the next Facebook and so on. I told you that that startup in an app, we have brilliant young people here. But if we invest in that, if they get a chance now to pitch their recommendation, one of those could become Facebook. I mentioned Candy Crush and so on. The Uber app I mentioned has started at a very small price, now worth, what is it, about $30 billion. We can have this there, and whatever money is made from it, the young ones will have their share, government will keep a part of it, which we can then reinvest into more app development investment programs. Further, we'll institute a national digital identification, and this we can use to integrate all government services. I had started that, strangely enough, way back when, under the Pandey government, when I was in the Ministry of Legal Affairs. We had started to do what was called a PIN, a personal identification number, which would have become digital. And that PIN was based on using the documents in the civil registry, which would be Legal Affairs Ministry, which would be births and deaths and so on, that you'll be given this personal number. Now, it may be similar to what the US has as a social, what's it called, a social security number that US has. So this national digital ID card is a very important one to bring it into critical services so we can track. And together with that, we will piggybacking onto that to have a health card, so that when that card is plugged in anywhere, right away, instantly, digitally, your doctor will know all your problems, will know all your medications that you're taking, what you took, what you didn't take, and what next you need to do. So it's a very important kind of card. And the thing is, the work was started way back when. We continued, the PNM, then PNM stopped it when the Pandey government demitted office. Then we restarted the program, took it further, as I say, to put the health card aspects on top of it. And then when they came again in 2015, threw it away. But I heard Mr. Rowley recently talking about he must have an electronic ID card and so on, talking about things that they should have done all along. So we will have to implement a widespread national e-payment platform. So again, you can pay all government services with this e-payment platform. So things like pensions, old age. I mean, it is so sad when you see all these old people lined up outside the bank and so on to collect their old age pensions. We can use it for welfare. We can use it for the judiciary. We can use it for WASA, TNTEC and so on, TSTT. We can connect it to e-connect, to the single electronic window. There's so many things we can do. And you can request and pay online for what? Birth papers, passports, everything else that you have to do. You can pay it online. Again, saving time, easing traffic, getting more productivity. So that's some of the things we want to do. But before I close, let me share some of the achievements of the Rowley government. They've put out a document and they say 75 achievements. But it's the first time I see people put achievements. They put the National Aquatic Center, built by whom? The government I-led. They put the velodrome, built by whom? The government I-led. They put the Couva Hospital, they put the Point Fortin Hospital. I mean, the thing is jokey beyond words. The Rima Hospital, I'm told today they opened the Point Hospital, but it's empty and there's a problem. So they're just rushing to say they did it before August 10th. So they put out these 75 achievements, and one achievement is that they paid back pay. Is that an achievement? It's not the duty of a government to pay back pay. It's a duty. That's what you're there for, and that's taxpayers' money. And you know why they pay the back pay? We had put that into place just before we left. And when they came into government, wow, that first budget, and all crying up and down and weeping and wailing and gnashing teeth and crocodile tears, how we left a bill to pay back pay. But we left the money to pay it. But they were so dishonest, they didn't want to pay it in the fiscal year 15 when we were in government. They allowed the time to run out in September, go into October, and they said, oh, we left this big debt. Imagine they see that as an achievement, and they saw it as a problem. My government settled over 143 wage negotiations. 143. This government, in almost 5 years, has not settled a single wage negotiation. So let us just end on a note of fun for all of us, but a very serious note and a reminder. Achievements of Rowley's government. Malcolm Jones' $13 billion Petrotrin GTA loss, written off by the PNM as soon as they came into office. Fake oil, $100 million, involving the bestie of the Prime Minister. 23 million and more in rent paid to Faris al-Renter. Almost 300 million they've collected in that family for the past years. Some more, allowance sanction Delcy Rodriguez, the sanctioned vice president of Venezuela, into Trinidad and Tobago after borders were closed with international narco traffickers in tow, to a private meeting with the Prime Minister. Well, I have never seen that man stumble and stutter so much. We had our press briefing in the evening, and they were in Parliament, and I had left the Parliament because I thought this was something that the country should know. And we called a press briefing at the opposition office. And when we completed it there, we saw the Parliament shut down. They took a break. And he's there now to do the press conference. He goes and he says, well, imagine, she left the Parliament to go and hold press conference. Well, I left, I'm entitled to leave and come and go. What did he do? He suspended the Parliament to come to answer. And when he came to answer, when we said, well, who was it? And he called, he said, well, I didn't even know that person was there. I didn't know. He didn't even know who he was meeting with. Do you believe that? A Prime Minister will never meet unless you're a madman, totally incompetent. We'll never meet with people you don't know. Before I was a Prime Minister, I know. Ask anybody else in the world. Before you have a meeting, you have to get a brief, a list, who, what, when, where. So you mean somebody could set you up, you could meet with a drug lord, and you don't know? None of your staff will tell you? Well, then that entire stuff should be fired if we believe him, but I don't believe him. I do not believe he did not know who was there. So these people are indicted in the US for narco trafficking, and he's meeting with them. That's where he has taken us. Rodney again has spoken tonight about issues in foreign relations and so on. So you want to hear some more accomplishments of the Rowley government? Let's go. Email gate. The thing was, the Commissioner of Police, when they did this, whatever, it was not even an email. It was not even an email. Someone just type up thing on a piece of paper. That's what he won the last election on, by lying to the population. Well, that lie is not going to help you this time. Marlene McDonald and her long journey in and out of the cabinet on several occasions. Shamfa Kojo Roman bill, $50,000. Darrell Smith sexual harassment settlement. Stuart Young's family and the finance deals they've been having through NCB Global Finance, billions of dollars changing hands. Camille Robinson Regis, I think Monilal called her WPC Robinson Regis. $100,000 deposit. Still questions surrounding that. Soca on the Seas. $3 million paintings. People can't get your salary grant. $3 million painting. You can't get your food card. You can't get your hamper. The Prime Minister's resident in Tobago. $25 million. $25 million. Whitehall. Tim, I think, spoke about Red House. All these structures, these huge structures, whilst people don't have food, they don't have jobs. And let us not forget the Seabridge fiasco. Millions of dollars to mobilize the defective ferry. So we can carry on all of those. But today, I want to say to you again, the threat of the storm, be safe, take your precautions. And again, I repeat, all our corporations, UNC corporations, they are on full alert. All our councils are standby, ready to assist whenever there may be a need. I urge you all to follow the safety guidelines. And finally, in about 17 days, you will be called upon to make a decision that will define our nation's history. Yes, all elections are important, but this general election comes at a time in circumstances that we can describe as a perfect storm. Perfect storm. Our economy has collapsed. The pandemic has further taken us into really recessionary times. And on top of that, we have an incompetent government who cannot lift us out of the abyss. First, we had a long, burdensome, nearly 5 years. Citizens lost jobs. Last count was over 100,000 jobs lost. Infrastructure, I mentioned to you, has deteriorated. You no longer have roads. You just have pothole roads. You can't even drive on those roads. You have also water, taps running dry. And even in Tobago, where so much was promised, Tobagonians have been punished by rowdies, uncaring, incompetent. So, look, all of this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I think the people of this country know their incompetence and their failures thus far. I want you to understand now, when you make that choice on 10th August, the elections are about Kamala and UNC and PNM. This election is about the next generation. That's why I made the call before. What really matters is not the yellow and the red. What matters is the red, white, and black. That is the common interest of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We in the UNC, we have clear plans, smart targets, measurable plans, and goals. And so, let's not take on the negativity. I have not heard one plan or one program from the other side. Not one. All I've heard is complain, blame. The same stories, the same playbook they've been playing for the past nearly 5 years. So on August 10th, vote for the only party that is ready to work for you. On August 10th, when you cast your vote, remember your children. Remember the elderly. Remember the 10,000 people outside of the country. And remember that this government has completely failed to improve the quality of life of anyone in this country. They have totally failed to deal with the issue of crime. I see 2 more murders today in Tobago. They have not dealt with crime. Our healthcare system, never mind Terrence out there crying every day, what a great job he's doing. Our healthcare system, as Rodney mentioned, or one of you, that it is so great. Rowdy says it's the best in the Commonwealth, but when he needs healthcare, he flies out to go somewhere else. Healthcare. Our education sector is also in a bad way. Health, infrastructure, and above all, the hope of people. Their hopes have been dashed. And I want to say the UNC stands ready to give you hope again. Let us work together to get TNT working again. Let us put food in the mouths of our families. And let us continue to make sure that on August 10th, we can get TNT working again, and we can make TNT great again. I thank you all, and may God bless you. Thank you very much.